On today's episode of the Bubs and Teabag Show, the guys confront ESG and all its evils head on.
There's a dystopian future ahead. You see a bleak darkness in our future, and your concern is masturbation.
Teabag wrestles with a personal demon that refuses to be exorcised.
At least Tom Cruise, he's a little bit on the short side, but he's a fucking man. You ever seen the stunts he's done? Not only that, he is like a top-level Commodore in Scientology or something like that.
And he's had some pretty hot wives.
The power of Bubs compels you. The power of Bubs compels you. The power of Bubs compels you.
A pumpkin spice beer? You gotta be fucking kidding me. I felt like I should have sucked my thumb in the corner.
All this and a 20-piece McNugget coming up.
Yeah. Crack those beers open and assume the position, baby. That's what I'm talking about. It's another episode of the Bubs and Teabag Show. Welcome, welcome. How you doing, Bubs?
After a riff like that, you only can raise a beer and a toast to that motherfucker.
Hell, yes.
Hell,
that is,
yeah.
Once again.
Hold on. Let me catch up.
Get in there. Get it.
Look at that.
That's
Was
right.
that skill?
Get right in there.
Was that one-handed?
Yes. And now, the most importantly, assume the position.
And a cheers to you. And you know what? A nice ass paddle. You know what their new motto is?
What is it?
Thank you. May I have another?
The marketing geniuses there at Ass Paddle in St. Cloud, once again, top of their game.
Top of the game.
So, beers aside, Old Milwaukee's aside, welcome everybody again to another edition of the Bubs and Teabag Show, where we talk old Minnesota, old movies, old media, old men, old mysteries. Dude, getting a little chilly out there now finally, huh?
Good. Little frost on the Blumpkin.
Frost.
Country
Little
bumpkin.
frost on the old pumpkin, eh?
Yeah.
How's the homestead going and stuff? You starting to lose leaves?
Losing leaves, pulling the garden out, gonna mow the lawn one last time. This is, I think, a record for me I know this is fucking exciting NPR news right now, but I'm gonna mow the lawn tomorrow. And I think this is pretty late.
A man mows the lawn.
Well, a man.
Not a
Or
bunch
I'll
of-
send a boy out to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
do my
well,
bidding.
A man does that too.
Yeah. So
sending other men to go out and do his dirty work.
Yeah, I mean that's a sign of leadership, getting people to do what they don't want to do.
I'm glad you're delegating. The yard work.
I didn't mow a lawn for 7 years.
That must have been Xanadu, huh?
Oh, I mean the yards look rough, but I accepted it because I was raising men, not grass.
What were some of the? Do you remember what some of their results were? Was it just mowed? There wasn't a pattern. There were missed spots, or
well,
what?
early on with the oldest kid, there were some mohawks out there, or maybe a whole section was forgotten.
Right.
Because a young boy or a young man is easily distracted.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, had to get in there and get inside.
Yeah. So then there's redirection. You trust but verify, and then redirect and instruct.
Trust but verify. Wasn't that Reagan that said that, or
I don't know if it was Reagan or
was
maybe,
it the KGB? Yes,
maybe it was some old fucking infantry general somewhere.
You ever see that TV show? It was a miniseries on HBO, also known as Max these days. It was called Chernobyl.
I wanted to watch that, and I did not. I neglected that one.
I've got to recommend that one strongly. There's a moment in there, though, where one of the KGB sort of higher-ups says something about a Soviet proverb, trust but verify. Which to me, sort of doesn't make sense at all. If you trust someone, what do you do in verifying?
You have to verify. If you've ever been in a leadership position, you trust. Teabag, I give you instructions.
Thank you.
So then I trust that you will do it, but I also have to verify. I'm not going to micromanage you, but I'm going to spot check to make sure your shit's tight.
What would happen if, for example, you did a verify and you discovered everything was absolutely fucked 2 ways from Sunday? Do you then apply discipline?
I think it's a coaching moment. And if it's a constant problem, then the hammer comes down. But if it's a once, hey, what the fuck's going on?
And
here? Let's figure this out.
Discipline in a bottle.
Well, then it's thank you, may I have another?
Yeah.
Discipline in a bottle. Here's to Ass Paddle.
It's a great beer, actually, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Tasty.
I met you at a local establishment and had a lovely fall Oktoberfest Blumpkin.
That bar is really good. Good sandwiches there.
Yeah, I had a decent sandwich, a nice Reuben.
For all you listeners out there, if you're ever in the greater Princeton / Cambridge area, fantastic bar called Neighbors on the Rum. Look up Jody, the bartender there. She'll set you up with a Reuben or an Ass Paddle Ale, whatever you need, whatever your poison is, she's got you covered. Recommend it. What'd you have tonight?
I had a Reuben. I had a Blumkin Oktoberfest and some tater tots.
Yeah.
And then somebody gave me a Jameson.
Yeah, that fucking
Because
guy.
I felt like a celebrity in there once
is,
you
yeah.
introduced me to people.
Hey, Bubs got, I guess you could call it recognized as, Bubs. I mean, they were even calling him Bubs. Hey, Bubs, your order's up, like he was really, he really was a celebrity there.
Well, it's funny is that there's people in Southwest Minneapolis who have no idea what my Christian name is.
Right.
I'm just Bubs
Right.
or Bubba to them.
Yeah, that was a good Jameson at that place. A great bump.
It was I don't know, what do you call it? A pregame, pre-show. We're warming up. We had notes. You had vigorous notes, copious notes on a bar napkin.
Yeah.
Reminds me of college.
A bar napkin right here. I'm holding it right in my hand.
What I noticed about you holding it in your hand, there are some crude sketches and meticulous writing in the form of almost a manifesto. If you ever get locked in somewhere, I can see the beginnings of it.
Remember the movie Seven,
Yes.
where they crack open John Doe's notebooks in his apartment? Kind of reminiscent of that in a way.
Well, I notice we're down in the studio, Ponderosa Studios tonight.
A great studio atmosphere tonight.
And you
by
don't
the way.
let me in the one room over here, and I think, what is that, jars of urine?
Yeah.
Or pig fetuses or something in a jar?
Piss jars, pickled eggs, freeze-dried food, meals ready to eat, and then ammunition, and then alcohol, and print media pornography. And it's not because I'm a connoisseur of it, Bubs. It's because
A fallback.
I'm a forward thinker.
Yeah.
That right there is a hedge. What that's known as in the financial sort of sector.
Commodities,
That's a hedge. And here's why I believe that it actually makes sense is
you need something in your hands to jerk off. I just need it in my mind.
I don't. I do not.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I will tell you who does though.
Okay. Who does? Somebody out there.
Most men between the ages of, 17 and probably 33. They're going to need that, especially if the lights ever go out, so to speak. Once in a while, we've speculated on that. Lights going out, metaphorically. Let's say all of a sudden the internet doesn't exist, or there are rations on fuel, or the economy suddenly collapses and goes into a state of hyperinflation. That's never happened before.
There's pre-apocalyptic things happening. There's a dystopian future ahead. You see a bleak darkness in our future, and your concern is masturbation.
Negative.
Okay.
The first part of that is somewhat correct. I don't know if it's bleak and, unfixable, but there could be a moment of, I guess, maybe social turmoil.
Or setback.
If there is, fuel and vice will become the most important commodities that there are, in my opinion. Yeah, I guess ammo is, fuel, ammo, and vice. Probably ammo is in there, yes.
God, guns, gold,
That's it.
ammo, food,
And
ruthlessness.
alcohol is going to be at a premium.
I agree.
And I believe print media pornography will also be at a premium. Mainly because, people have gotten very used to having their phone, or as you call it, the naked lady giver, in their hand at all times and ready to, I can pull up any porno I want there and satisfy whatever urge I need. They forgot how it was up until probably the year 2000. Before that, you had to go searching. You had to go a-searching. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You had to,
I was a man on a trail. I was like Odysseus.
In the 90s, the
Searching to
internet
get home.
existed, but if you were going to get porn then, it took minutes, maybe even hours to
sorry.
download.
Oh, with dial-up?
Yeah, the speed. It just wasn't very fast. Places like Schindler's, for example, they could stay in business up until about 2005, but once porn got faster and more accessible, the magazines went away. In fact, I think for a while, Playboy even wasn't a thing.
Tried to be legit.
Yeah. And now I think they're back to doing naked women in the centerfolds and stuff, which is probably a good idea.
How about Penthouse? Have they just been head down,
I don't know.
fucking Pussy Willows and Beaver Meadows and just going?
I'm
Bob
not sure.
Guccione?
I'm not sure, but I do remember this. In the late 90s, early 2000s, Penthouse was on some sort of a kick where where their centerfolds were actually peeing. And I'm not exactly sure what was going on there. I don't know if they still do that, though. But last time I saw that, I kind of tuned out.
Somebody with a college degree in marketing
Said, let's
go for
hey,
the
guys,
fucking...
there isn't a whole lot of peeing,
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
I like water sports. I want a few months of water sports.
The meeting went a little something like this. There were 8 guys sitting around a table.
No, there's always there's a couple women. The
there's
women
one.
are more
Yeah,
creative. There's always one
There
or
was
two.
one in there.
Yeah, there's one in there.
They had promoted some centerfold up to exec or something.
See, now
She
you're
was
living
there
in a
too.
fantasy. I think it's just some hardworking chick that likes porn or knew that industry could make money.
I guarantee you that the guys were sitting around the table going, guys, circulation is down a little bit. We don't know why. We've got to compete with the internet. They're going to come and they're going to take our lunch. What do we do? Dave, we haven't heard from you in a while. Any ideas? Well, guys, I mean, with the exception of Water Sportsman Weekly, we haven't seen a whole lot of water sports and peeing. What do you think?
Run it.
Yes.
Run it.
Let's print it.
Yeah.
That's
Let's
what they
start
said.
with a girl on a toilet.
It
It's
started
more
there.
acceptable,
Yeah.
and then it's just full on facials.
Yeah. Eventually it morphed into a girl out camping at a camping scene in like a, camping chair or something and then peeing on it.
I'm going to use this term again, pussy willows and beaver meadows. I came up with that today.
It's great.
Yeah. And I
What's,
just love it. I don't know why. It just rhymes. I'm going to write a song, Pussy Willows and Beaver Meadows. It's going to be a country song. Well, I heard some young cats in my house were over for dinner, right? I got
Yeah.
a 21-year-old son and a girlfriend. And they were hanging out at the house, and they started talking about a PSL, right? PSL?
What is it?
PSL. So I'm thinking in my head, because I'm deranged, I'm thinking like ATM. What does this mean? Not ass to mouth. Some fucked up thing, PSL.
Yeah, you're thinking it's like a abbreviation for like an internet
act.
sexual position
Yeah,
or
something funny, right?
What
something,
is it exactly?
It's apparently a pumpkin spice latte that you get at Starbucks. You just order. That's the short abbreviated version. I'll take a PSL.
They've abbreviated it at this point,
yeah,
huh?
2 PSLs.
Oh, my God.
2 PSLs.
As if shit wasn't gay enough already.
2 PSLs, and those 2 guys in the back are doing an ATM.
Thank God for them. So stunning, so brave. The worst thing about it is those PSLs actually taste good.
I had a. I'm gonna tell you something. I had an Oktoberfest, and then I had an Oktoberfest from a competitor. That was a pumpkin spice something that somebody handed me at a get together over the weekend, and I think I got about a third way through it, and I detected the taste of bile. I did choke it down because I'm a man, but man, I'll never have another one of those fucking things.
That was it, huh?
Oh God, come on! It was free, so I drank it.
Sure. You were being polite.
Yeah, but never again. A pumpkin spice beer? You got to be fucking kidding me. I felt like I should have sucked my thumb in the corner. Shame. Loathing.
Pumpkin spice sells, Bubs, and I'll tell you exactly
Well,
why it
fuck
sells.
those-
It's because of women.
No,
It's a movement or something like that.
How can it be that good?
I think it tastes, pleasant. I don't know that it's something I'm waiting all of my life for, but right now, do you want to know what's fucked up too?
Go ahead.
Go back about 3 or 4 shows. We bring up pumpkin spice every single fucking time.
And
I'm
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, and that's bullshit.
It
you
is.
know what I mean?
We're
Like,
fucking brainwashed.
Right. Why are we doing this?
God, we're fucking punk ass bitches.
We're men.
Well, that like one of
At
us
least
likes
Tom
pumpkin
Cruise,
spice.
yeah, he's a little bit on the short side, but he's a fucking man. You ever seen the stunts he's done? Not only that, he is like a top level Commodore in Scientology or something like that.
And he's had some pretty hot wives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of them was even shot by someone. Charlie Sheen shot one of his, or no,
No.
wasn't he married to Kelly No, he wasn't.
No.
Wasn't Tom
Kelly
Cruise-
Preston is married to Travolta.
Was. She's dead now.
Oh.
Yeah.
She had brain cancer or something.
Yeah, something. But
She shed her container and went on to the next life.
she is now OT 17
Yeah.
with Elron. She was at one point dating Charlie Sheen, and he shot her. I don't think they were
Like
fighting
a James Brown type shooting?
like accident type thing. Like the gun sort of went off when he was fucking with it, coked up at his house type thing or something like that.
The damn thing went off.
Yeah, we've heard that one many a time.
Yeah.
No.
Hey, what episode is this?
32.
I'm gonna dedicate this to OJ.
Great. Yeah, I'd love to hear this
Number
one.
32.
Please continue.
Number 32. Guy could run the fucking ball.
He was good.
He
in
was
his
good.
day.
Heisman.
Do you remember where you were when the Bronco chase was going on?
I can't tell this story.
Oh, really? Really? You
I can
can't?
tell parts of it.
Okay. Do you want me to do mine first while you compartmentalize?
I can't compartmentalize. I can just kind of pull it together, I guess, loosely, and people can fill in the blank.
You want me to go first? Or you want to go first?
I was in Fort Benning, Georgia.
All right, keep going.
I had played rugby, I think that day or something, and we were at a rugby bar, and it was like some weird beer oyster bar in Columbus, Georgia. There was a few rugby players, and there was a guy that I played rugby with at Mankato who was on a men's team from Atlanta, and we'd played this team or something, and it was like, holy shit. So he came with us, and hometown buys the beer, or home team or whatever, but we were at this bar, and all of a sudden this chase is going on.
Yeah, on TV.
Yeah, and it's slow chase, slow speed. People are gathering. There's signs. It's just like out of a movie.
Wasn't
it's
it the
surreal.
weirdest thing?
Yeah. And then it went on and on and on, and everybody's just kind of sitting there quiet watching it. And then this bar is in Georgia.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of American flags, but there were some Confederate flags.
Sure.
And it's a southern bar, and it's about as big as your basement.
Okay.
Maybe smaller.
So on the modest size.
A divey type.
Gotcha.
Place
Exactly.
where a rugby team would feel at home. And there was a man there who was, I don't know, I was in my early 20s, so this guy was probably, I don't know, 60, 55, had a beard like ZZ Top. He was a good old boy, and he weighed about $140 soaking wet. A working man, had his dungarees on, drinking a beer, stood up with his mug and started yelling out, kill the kill the
no
kill
kidding.
the and then people clapped, and then he sat down, and I think they changed the channel.
No. Man. Insane. Insane. I was not that old at the time, but I can
1994.
picture it. I can picture it.
Yeah, I was 24.
Here's where I was. Bronco chase type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I believe if it was summer of 94, from what I remember, summer.
It was
very
in June.
vivid. Yeah.
June or May or June.
I think it was June, because I believe I was recently done with my freshman year of high school. And I'd gone to see a movie with my dad, and I think it was City Slickers 2.
The Revenge of Curly or something
Something,
like that?
yeah. The Legend of Curly's Gold.
Yeah.
Just a movie that definitely shouldn't have been made, but it was nonetheless made. We went and saw it.
Jack Palance.
Don't remember much of it other than that was it. And then getting home, hearing things on the radio about it on the way home, and then getting home and turning on the TV and it was going on. You know, I think my dad and I had gone to a little bit of an earlier show. I don't remember it being dark out yet, but close. And the OJ chase was going on in like the maybe early evening, like sort of late afternoon type thing, I think, in California. But man, that was a sight. And then for like the next 2 years, you never heard anything except OJ stuff. Radio people, news people, TV people, comedians, like you wouldn't believe. They were able to mine. It was like a gold rush for comedians.
Well, it was a gold rush for anybody involved with it, any sort of media. I know I met some independent cameramen later on in the 2000s, maybe like 2010 or something, and they all made their own money. So before, you would have to have a camera from a ABC, CBS,
like a company or something,
CNN, yeah, a news organization. You know, I'm talking, the ones that they held on their shoulders. These guys made so much money working the OJ trial that they were able to buy all their own gear and go independent.
No kidding.
Yep.
What a great story that is. And like, look where it's come now, where, the cameras now are so cheap and affordable and light. I mean, even podcasting, look at us. We're a couple of retards in a basement, who bought $200 or $100 microphones. And here we are, 70 followers, I believe now. Yeah. I mean, the sky's the limit, Bubs. I can't even imagine what
but
it
our
would have been
potential of artistry and sex appeal.
Unmatched.
Yeah. I mean, we're a sleeper out there. We're the
dark
diamond in the rough.
Yes. The dark horse.
The dark horse, yeah. I mean, we're down here. We're DIYing it.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
But I look back at the OJ deal. It's fucked up. And that was just a surreal circus of justice. Every person knew that motherfucker was guilty. Didn't matter what color you were. You knew he was guilty, but some people took a stance just based on color.
Yeah. I remember also when they read the verdict. I was a junior in high school when the verdict came down.
Yeah.
And I remember very vividly the verdict was announced and hearing the whole school kind of shut down. They gave like an announcement. We're like, okay, we're going to turn on TVs and like and everyone's
historical
classroom.
moment.
Right.
Yeah.
And when they read the not guilty, there was a great many black voices that
Celebrated.
lifted their voice to sing, I believe, is the I think that's what the NFL
Has OJ found his wife's killer?
Not yet. I think he's still looking. I think he's still taking a peek. It looks like he's still looking around golf courses in Florida for some reason, which I don't know.
Did he get out of prison in Vegas or wherever?
Yeah, he's out. He's out, and I think he might be in Florida now.
But being this episode 32, OJ could run the ball in college. He could run the ball in the pros and for Hertz rental.
Yeah, he was quite something. Here's to you, Juice. Hats off, buddy.
Find that killer.
Hopefully one of these days something comes to you.
You know what's popping in my mind right now?
Karmic justice. What?
How fucked up the 90s were.
Fucked up in a good way or bad way?
Bad way. Fucked up shit. I mean, you could almost argue, I'm sure people went and looked at the 80s and went, God, damn, that was all fucked up. 70s, oh, that was all fucked up. 60s for sure, parts of it were fucked up.
Wait until you hear about the 2020s.
Well, we started out really well, didn't we? Dumpster fire. That'll be the motto of the decade. No, you have fucking Rodney King. You got Desert Storm that starts it out. You got Rodney King. You have the riots of Rodney King. You have those cops. You have Waco. You have Ruby Ridge. I just wrote down some notes. You got Lorena Bobbitt or whatever, cutting the penis off.
Yeah, that was huge.
You got the Long Island Lolita and Joey fucking Foucault.
Yep.
The Clintons were in power for almost the whole decade. Then his debacle at the end with his mistress that he gets caught.
Still are kind of in power in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah.
By proxy with Obama.
Proxy. But, I mean, you have all that shit happen in the 90s in Oklahoma City, right in the middle of the decade.
You want to talk about something that's fucked up that I remember kind of about the late 90s? I got an idea for it. Here it is. Remember a little thing called Y2K?
Y2K?
Yeah. Or yes, Y2K.
Yeah. What is Y2K?
Right.
You're a science guy. I'm not. I'm an artist. You're a science-based guy.
For those of you listeners out here who might be on the younger side, I know there's a few of you out there. Y2K was technically, we had New Year's Eve going from 1999 into January 1st, 2000. So 23 years ago. Basically, at the time, there became this sort of, I don't know, like social sort of kind of like anxiety over whether or not the world almost maybe was going to end, because computers had been operating on an internal time clock that only used 2 digits for the year. So if it was 1999, it would just say 99. Because whenever they came up with computers and started laying the groundwork with the digital infrastructure, they just used the two numerals for the year instead of 4. Well, they figured when it was going to go to 00 instead of 99 that it could cause all kinds of fucked up problems. And they started to telegraph this and saying, we don't know what's going to happen, but we're working to fix it. And a lot of people, the conspiracy types, started getting into it, saying, we think, this is what's going to happen. The world's going to end. It's going to usher in the Illuminati and blah, 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 blah. The fucked up thing is that by the end of it, towards, December of 99, I remember very vividly standing in a fucking Target line, ready to check out and buy whatever it was I was buying. I would have been 20 at the time. And I was standing in line, and I'm waiting for the person ahead of me to kind of get done and get checked out. And they have those little items on the side at the checkout line that are impulse items: batteries, candies, pencils, erasers, things like that you don't really need, but you see them and you go, you know what? I'm going to get this.
I need some fucking erasers.
Yeah, I need something. Yeah. I need those Rolos, even though I haven't had them since 1984. They look good. So I'm in that little area, and I see this flashlight that takes 2 AA batteries, I believe. So the thing is putting out the candle power of basically a candle at that point. It's nothing. It's a piece of shit. It's a $6.99 flashlight at that time, probably. And I remember looking at it, and somebody had slapped a sticker on it aftermarket, they must have had probably just a roll of these yellow stickers that were very bright, trying to get your attention. And it said on this $5.99 flashlight, Y2K ready. And I remember thinking to myself,
Wow.
one of the first times where I went like, wow, I'm being lied to. I am being fucking lied to. And I remember
manipulated.
Right. I remember. And then of course Y2K rolls around. I went to a big party at a hotel that night. Had a great time with a bunch of people. Took some fucking ecstasy.
Wow.
Good shit, buddy.
God bless you.
Yeah. One of the last, well, yeah, I mean, it was yeah, exactly. No.
Were you okay,
X was
keep going.
that was like a thing back then. You watch those rave movies.
I believe
and
it was
stuff.
legal when I was in high school.
It might have been, yeah. I think you could buy it at like stores
It was.
if you knew where to look. Either way, yeah, that's what I remember about Y2K and just a lot of bullshit too. Like now that you think about it, you got other things that were around back then that no longer exist.
Well, what about Y2K? Are we still talking about that?
Do you have a story?
I have kind of a humorous story. I mean, I have a lot of stories from it, but I'm not sharing those. But
Well, give me what you got.
Well, the wife, she got a little paranoid, thinking the world was going to end, or at least not end, but you know what? Maybe people thought the electrical grids were going to shut down, nuclear plants were going to shut down, water treatment facilities were going to shut down. So you had to figure out stuff. And people we knew, some were somewhat prepping or thinking about it. And I looked at her and I said, you want to prep? Fill up the tub. You need to do something. Fill up the tub with water.
Great idea.
She goes, that's your plan? I'm like, yeah, that's our plan. We'll have water for a few days. If it all goes to hell, we'll just slaughter the neighbors and take their stuff. And she's
Another great
I did
idea.
a deadpan right to her. And she's like, didn't know what. Is this true? Or are you joking?
That is true.
Yeah. Well, looking back, of course I was joking.
If you know Bubs, that's very true, buddy.
So anyway,
Did you guys fill up the tub?
she filled it up.
Yeah.
Fill it up.
That's
and then-
actually one of the smartest things you can do.
And then when I got home later, after I was done with work, I emptied the tub because everything was fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything was fine.
But think about it this way. You fill up the tub, well, hey, I got 40 gallons, maybe more of, softened water or whatever it is. It's an excellent idea. And I've heard that a few times. So hats off to you, Bubs, for coming up with.
Well, you have to leave them with something, right? If people are nervous, or give them something to do.
The problem is that had you not told her that, her solution would have been to go to Target and buy the fucking Y2K ready flashlight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And then you know what happens after that? The neighbor who's got his head screwed on straight comes over to your house and cuts your throat in the middle of the night and then steals the Y2K ready flashlight.
Yeah. And takes all our water.
Right. And then eats you.
And then eats us, yes. Later, he preserves us.
Yeah. No, that was like a wild time, like the late 90s / going right into
The whole
2000.
90s were just bizarre. I mean,
Yeah.
the media, how the media exploded. So OJ happens and there's no internet. There's no cell phones.
Yeah, not really.
I mean, not in how they are today.
it was occupied by nerds.
I first saw the internet. I was at my buddy's house, the guy who I hunt with, and his dad and he had some stepsisters, and they lived some suburb or something. We were over there watching the Vikings, and he had a stepsister or a half sister that was probably 14 or 15. And this is sometime in the 90s, or mid 90s, maybe 94, 5, 6, somewhere in there.
Sounds about right, yeah.
And she is sitting at their one computer in their house, big ass computer, and we're watching the Vikings. And she goes, "Come over here and look at this." And it was just a spreadsheet, and it was written like in some old type. It said Vikings, and then it was yards, touchdowns, yards per carry that she had pulled up. And she goes, "This is on the internet. What the fuck is that?"
And it was stats, huh?
And you could watch them change in real time. And
That must have blown your fucking mind.
Yeah, and you're like, who's typing this in?
Right.
And why are we getting it?
Yeah.
And then right there at that moment, if I had any vision, knowledge, I could have started a fucking fantasy football sports thing. Because we did fantasy football, but you had to mail shit in to the head guy,
yeah.
You had to read the paper and look at all this shit. But man, I could have started I wouldn't have started it, have somebody else do it.
Right. I remember 2001 was the first year I ever did a fantasy league where they went to
Mine was 1989.
You went to internet in 1989?
No, fantasy football.
Oh,
1989.
first one that you did?
Yeah. My running back was Roger Craig.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Mine, well, I had done a couple probably in like 98, 99, but then in 2000. Then I did one in 2001. We started doing the stats and stuff and keeping track of the league
Yeah.
on this thing called CBS Sportsline, which is actually still a thing,
Yeah.
but I think it was bought by Yahoo. I remember we did the draft, and on 9/11, like I had gotten to work and was like looking, like looking at Yahoo, and all of a sudden shit was going buck wild.
Hey, I got to know my running back stats.
Right.
I don't
Yeah,
give a shit about two buildings.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
God damn you assholes. Vinny Testaverde is supposed to be.
He's on fire. Was he with the Browns then, or was he down in Florida?
He might have been. Yeah, no. Well, it might have. Wasn't he
'Cause
with
he
the
bounced
Jets?
her-
Wasn't he with the Jets for a
San
couple
Diego
years? Yeah.
Jets, Browns, down in Florida.
Broke a leg, I remember, on week 1, and that
Yeah.
might have been it. Nonetheless, though, I remember a lot of things that existed then that don't anymore. I remember commercials at the time always doing this one thing, and it was called some variation of 1-800-COLLECT. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
It was like that was like the swan song, the sort of dying cough of like telecommunications people trying to milk
Money.
that last dollar out of
You
collect
have
calls.
cards.
Right.
Collect cards for
Right.
calling.
They knew cellular stuff was coming, and there was no way they were going to be able to really stop it. I mean, they were probably, had plenty of money invested in that as well. But I think they figured, hey guys, this is the last year or two that we're going to have this until cell phones finally blow up. Let's do this 1-800-COLLECT thing. I remember the commercials all over the place on TV for that.
What about like things like lava links and night, encounters? And
yeah.
you would call the number and talk to some
Yep.
fucking fat chick on the other line.
If you watch TV after 10 p.m., the commercials drastically changed.
Yeah.
That was the best.
Women in lingerie laying in bed with lipstick saying, call me.
Those don't exist anymore. If they do, I'm not aware of them. At least at night, I don't watch like network.
But
or
remember, you
cable
could
TV
call
anymore.
the fortune tellers. And they would
Miss Cleo.
Miss Cleo. She get in some trouble running some scams.
Yeah, something.
But they had all sorts of late night shit you could call.
I think the reason people like Miss Cleo go bust is because there's people that are sitting at home with like cancer or something going, Miss Cleo, what do? Do I gamble all my money, or do I, get the new chemo treatment, and
Just call me back, darling.
yeah, right. Well,
Call me back,
give me
darling.
another few calls.
Wasn't she from the islands or something, Mom?
She claimed she was. I'm
Yeah.
guessing she was
She's
probably
from Brooklyn.
Jacksonville, Florida, or something.
Brooklyn.
Miss Cleo. Yeah, that. Another thing, pagers. Remember those fucking things? They were around for about 10 years.
Longer than 10 years.
Longer, but their real heyday was like the 1990s.
80s.
Yes and no.
Are you going to argue with me? I'm older than you.
Yeah, I am going to argue a little
Okay.
bit. They were definitely around. I mean, they were around, I think, in the late 70s even. But
Yeah. But I remember kids in high school having them.
really?
Yeah.
Not how many?
Not tons, but people
Yeah.
had them. And probably by the 90s,
Every single person had it at that
a lot
point.
of people did. I didn't get a pager until I was late 90s, till I was in my late 20s.
Yeah, me too.
I
I
didn't
didn't
want
get
any.
one until I was employed.
And I only had it for a few years. You know what's not around anymore? The
What?
man line.
What's that?
The Twin Cities man line.
What was that, like
For
a
a
gay-
man-on-man.
gay hookup?
Yeah. So you could call that number. It was a number, like a 1-800 number, and you'd get charged. But they had a couple local lines, right?
Tell you where the nearest public toilet is, or what?
No, it was man-on-man encounters. So if I'm calling and I'm looking to meet somebody somewhere, yeah, public toilet, the airport, senator, whatever.
Right.
But I would use that, and everybody I worked with had pagers, and so then you would hit, hey, it's Bubs, something pound, and then leave that number, call me,
Yeah.
and then motherfuckers,
Hey guys, it's Man Line.
hi, welcome to the Twin Cities Man Line. For a man-on-man encounter, press 1.
To speak to Brad, press 2.
And
For Bubs, press 6.
and we would it was constantly back and forth.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
because
man.
you would fall for it. I would fall for
Right.
it once in a while. Like, fuck, what do they need?
I remember when my buddies had them. You got to remember we were in high school, so like, there's not a whole lot of money around, but basically everybody had their own code with like that group of friends where it was like, oh, you put in number 13. Mine was 13.
What does that mean?
Mine was 13, so
Yeah.
yeah, that's teabag. And then somebody else. Of course, there's always 5 or 6 guys fighting over who gets to be 69 and who gets to be 420. Yeah. So that's what I remember about pagers. I didn't really have one in high school. I had, like I said, got one kind of like you did later in life through like employment, but I never really used them that much. They pretty much went away. Yeah. You know, by 2005, I don't think anybody had a pager anymore. Another thing that I liked.
Everybody that dealt weed had a pager.
Sure. And probably bought weed too.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to move it.
Yeah, pagers were one of those things that it's too bad young people can't experience the real world sort of dilemma of getting a page and then having to go and find a fucking payphone and call someone who is stranded at a party. And, you know, nowadays that would take 20 minutes tops round trip to remedy that problem. Back then it could take 2, 3, 4 hours.
Yeah.
It could fuck your whole night up.
Well, you had to be patient, or you had to be an adult at a younger age and critically think and problem solve.
That's true too.
Yeah.
Great point.
Because if you called your parents, my parents were like everybody else's parents. Fuck you, find your way home. You're grounded because you're late.
Right. Great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the buck stops here, baby.
No. Not, oh, I'll get you. I don't want you getting raped.
Right.
Sorry, there's bad people in vans everywhere with clown masks.
You did the right thing by calling us, sweetie. You're not punished. Yeah, fuck you. Get to your room for a year.
How's that sound? The cum stains out of her fucking costume.
Yeah. Ugh, ish. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you dress as someone from
a Teletubby.
Beaver Meadow, Minnesota.
Beaver Meadows and Pussy Willows.
There was you remember...
cool listening.
Dude, you remember CD burners at all, or was that kind of like...
No, that was around,
yeah.
Yeah,
so
I remember it. I didn't have one.
I had them mainly because when I got my first computer, they were starting to be included in a lot of computers, and then they started including DVD burners even in a lot of computers, which I had. They don't do that anymore. They don't even do disk drives anymore, and I have a fucking theory for why that's a thing.
Go ahead.
In my opinion, Bubs, people like Jeff Bezos, people like Mark Zuckerberg, these other fucking
billionaires,
a-holes who are here to suck you dry, those guys, they don't want you watching your own movies anymore. They want to own the movie, and then when it's your time to say, I'm ready to watch it, they're going to let you watch it for a price. Guess what else they're going to do? Right now it's convenient. Hey, I've got all these movies at the tips of my fingers. No, you don't, goddammit. In a couple years, Blazing Saddles will be deemed way too offensive to be shown on any sort of streaming platform anymore, and it's going to go away.
Guess what? You can come to my house and watch it.
You can if you have a VHS or a DVD.
I do.
And a player
I do.
that still isn't hooked up to the internet, but most of them are now. And if they are, they're going to fuck with that.
No, they're not going to fuck with this one.
The guys who own these platforms, they're extremely, extremely uber rich. And they have activists. They have people in their ear. They have all sorts of, hands that are out that are asking for something. And eventually they're going to say yes to the wrong person. Someday that person is going to tell you or tell the people that control all the streaming media that movie you used to like is no longer, so to speak, kosher, in terms of...
Or maybe we're deplorable. That movie's deplorable.
Yeah, it could be too.
Could be deplorable.
My prediction is that streaming will eventually be used against you. In the all too famous adage that's very popular right now with tyrants like Klaus Schwab, you will own nothing and you will like it.
Well, war is peace.
My point is, hang on to your physical media, folks. You got DVDs, hang on to them. You got VHS copies, yeah, you can hang on to them as long as you got a VCR still. But the problem is the magnetic encoding is probably going to go bad on you.
I enjoy comedy. Blazing Saddles, for example.
They'll take that one out of circulation.
What I'm saying is my wife went out and bought a bunch of DVDs a couple of years ago and gave them to me for Christmas. So it's, Richard Pryor stand-ups. It's Dice Clay, George Carlin, ton of George Carlin, and all that stuff. So we have it. At least we have access to it.
That's going to be valuable, Bubs, if shit ever hits the fan, just like I said that print porno will be valuable.
Yeah.
Because people aren't going to be able to get it anymore.
Well, if you get rid of comedy, right? So comedy is offensive, but it's satire.
Yeah.
And satire is critical of the state. That's the first thing to go. They're going to go after, right? You can't say what you used to say. You can't, comedians for the last 10 years have been shy to go on stage and just bear it all. At least a few of them nowadays are going out there and doing it.
There's a few, and they're either massively, massively big like Dave Chappelle, or they have no following like us, and they simply don't give a fuck.
Well, yeah, but we still have to do it. Satire.
I
Once they
agree.
get rid of satire, and the Karens that are offended at everything, fuck them.
I know. I agree. Yeah.
I just don't know why. And the listening audience out there, ask yourself this. Why are people so easily offended? Why are people so offended if somebody tells an off-color joke over by the water cooler?
I don't think they are. I think they've just been conditioned by
somebody out there
by
is so
overly
offended.
educated white women
think
to
about
say
it.
that they need to feel ashamed for that.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
you're
see them
right.
out there shouting on the news and yelling about every motherfucking thing. Shut the fuck up. Go do your job, whatever your job is made up. When times get tough and convenience goes away, all these fucks will be dead fucking quiet.
I 1,000% agree with you on that. It's very easy to shout through a bullhorn when you're the only one shouting through it.
Yeah,
And,
go ahead. You know what? But you know what? Go over to the bread line with the starving people and their kids that are sick and they got fucking pneumonia and we're just holding it together with a little piece of coal to stay warm at night. And you're going to go tell me about equity, fairness, and inclusion, and please don't be politically incorrect.
The thing I like about this last line of discussion, Bubs, is that we went from talking about a Y2K flashlight and beaver meadows
Pussy willows.
and pussy willows to removing the 19th Amendment within about 15 minutes.
Yes.
Let me cheers to you, sir, with that with
Violent
that-
swing.
with that can of Old Milwaukee. That's
Yeah.
why we love the Bubs and Teabag show.
We do.
Yeah, we do, and those other 17 people that still listen to us do. I think we may have lost a few followers after my last couple of rants. But,
What was the rant that set people?
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
when the beers get flowing. It's either take your pick.
Rant
it's the
alert.
gays, it's the Jews, it's the blacks, it's the whites. I don't know who it is anymore. I'm
the
pointing
pinks,
fingers.
it's
Yeah,
the reds, it's the
anyone I
yellows.
can find.
The blues and the pinks, love stinks.
What you can take away from this, folks, though, is this. Hold on to your physical media. Hold on to your DVDs. Hold on to your VCR tapes if you have them. Hold on to your Playboys or your Playgirls if you swing that way. We are very inclusive.
Is it wrong for me to look at a nice Playgirl?
Yes. Yeah.
What
I mean,
it's
if
a
it's
great
me,
article?
yes, it's
What
wrong.
if it's a great article
well,
about watches
okay.
Or
I'll allow it. Yeah.
or Maseratis?
Yeah. I'll allow it. Yeah,
right.
I guess
or cowboy
maybe.
hats.
Yeah, if it's written by someone who's really trying to just sell you on the performance of that particular item or piece of material, yeah, I guess I'll allow
All
it.
right, thank you.
If it's hey, this is an article about watches and Rolexes, and it's being modeled by a nude man on a beach, then no, I won't allow that. Speaking of movies, this one for me is way, way up there. Probably number one for me with scariness. I don't know what to. This movie for me is kind of the top for creeping me the hell out, and that's The Exorcist from 1973.
Isn't it amazing? It was 73, 50 years ago.
Insane. What's crazier is that I even spoke to someone tonight when we were having our pre-show sort of powwow, who said, I just saw it. I thought it was good. And they were talking about I guess there's one that came out like a week ago, like another Exorcist sort of sequel. And this one actually does have Ellen Burstyn and Linda Blair, who play pretty much the main roles in the first movie from 73, 50 years ago.
Yeah, Ellen is the mother, and
Yep.
Linda
And
Blair's the 12-year-old
Right.
daughter.
I think Burstyn is like in her 90s now. Still doing good though, and Linda Blair's got to be in her 60s, but I didn't realize at first that the woman I was talking to was actually, she was referring to this new one from 2023, and I said, I've only read a little bit about it. I've read that it's not being very well received. Not that that totally matters to me. I think I'll probably still see it at some point, but you got to watch the original that we've been watching. I don't know about you, but I've watched it a couple times in the last week, kind of studying little nuances and things like that. I've seen it, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 times before that. Buddy, what a movie for me. whether you're a Christian or a Catholic or a Satanist, I think it's still kind of
It hits all of them.
Yeah, it reverberates a little.
Well, it's an interesting movie in a religious aspect because it's showing Muslims, it's showing Christians, Catholics. It shows a variety of religions in there.
Definitely a lot of, the Abrahamic faiths are basically, well represented in this movie.
Yeah.
And the very beginning is this
Well, it's
kind
a
of
call
long,
to prayer.
drawn out prologue. Yeah, well,
There's a call to prayer as the opening song
right.
there. Yeah.
It's some guy doing the I can't remember if they call that the takbir or something like that, but
Allah.
yeah, the Allahu Akbar. Yeah, that where
And it's set in Iraq at the beginning.
yeah,
Opening scenes.
and the priest, Father Marin, who is played by, I think, a very capable Max von Sydow, who died a couple years ago.
Who's played some creeps over the years.
Yeah, he has. The interesting thing, though, is they've got him done up in makeup to make him look older in that movie.
Yeah, I'm like, man, he wasn't that old then.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just died a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But he plays the priest, Father Marin, who's also, by sort of education, he's some type of accomplished archaeologist as well as a Catholic priest. And the other priest in the movie, the main one, Father Karras, played by Jason, I can't remember his last name right now, but he's a psychiatrist as well as a Catholic priest.
Yeah, he was trained. He was a Jesuit priest, but then trained. Jesuits are the educational part of the priesthood.
Sure.
And then he became he's a psychiatrist.
Yeah, I believe he's he's
psychiatrist or psychologist.
No, he's an MD. He's
yeah,
a
so
psychiatrist.
in the movie they indicate he went to Harvard and John Hopkins and did all this stuff
Right.
and been everywhere. So he's highly educated, but yet lives in some very feeble, chaste type existence like a priest would.
Sure. Yeah, he's in a tiny little studio apartment.
Yeah, living in kind of a rougher neighborhood of
DC, I believe.
yeah, DC. So who knows what part of DC he's living in, but it's a rougher one.
Father Marin is, like we said, the archaeologist who unearths something in Iraq.
Probably
at a dig
Babylonian.
site.
Yeah, because they show a lot of Babylonian or Sumerian artifacts.
And he pulls something up out of there that kind of looks like some head of a animal or demon or something, and things start going a little haywire for him.
Well, he's troubled.
You see him the next day, he's at a cafe somewhere in Baghdad or something like that, and he's got to go in and dip into his pills, which look like they're probably heart pills.
Yeah, maybe nitro.
Yep. He starts taking them. He's very troubled. And then the movie sort of cuts to here we are now in D.C. or in the D.C. metro area.
Georgetown.
Yes.
And then the mom, played by Ellen Burstyn, she's portrayed as an actress playing an actress.
She is.
Yeah,
and she does it really well. She
Yeah.
plays these sort of like, I don't know, just sort of Hollywood asshole type,
And she's in D.C. or Georgetown because she's filming a movie. Brought her daughter.
Yep. And they show some scenes where she's being directed by another guy.
French director.
Yep. Kind of a Polanski looking type guy, I
Yeah,
always thought,
yeah.
And his name is Burt Dennings in the movie. She's being directed. She's doing a movie, and it's sort of laid out that she's a big star, a leading lady in Hollywood. She's making a movie in D.C. She's on location, and she's rented a house, and it's basically her and her daughter, who's probably, I'm guessing,
12.
14,
She's
12. Is it 12?
Yeah, because she has her birthday and she's 12.
Sure. Played by Linda Blair. The daughter's name is Reagan. Played very well by Linda Blair. And they're there until the duration of the movie is done. And
Well, she has some servants. She's a high-end actress, so she has a butler that's German. And then she has probably a female assistant that probably does her day-to-day
her
stuff.
day-to-days. They're
and
in
then
the
there's
house.
a housekeeper.
Yep. So there's like 3 other
And
people
it's
in there.
like a brownstone in Georgetown.
Yeah, nice place.
Yeah. So the movie's about demonic possession. Or
Right.
some sort of possession, whether it's the devil or a demon. And Linda Blair, the 12-year-old girl, becomes possessed.
Then they kind of ease you into it, though.
Oh, they ease you into it. They give you some warnings.
They basically show the first kind of warnings are she starts playing at one point with a Ouija board with her mom in the basement.
And the Ouija board jumps. But
Yeah.
she already knows because she has been down in the basement playing with the Ouija board on her own
On her own.
and knows that there's somebody that she's been talking to.
Captain Howdy.
Captain Howdy.
Yeah. She says that at one point, Linda Blair takes the Ouija board out of storage or wherever in the basement, brings it out to her mom and shows it to her.
Yeah. So the
And-
portal is open.
Right.
If you believe in that stuff, that she was, whether it's witchcraft or something demonic, she entered a portal or opened up a door to the other side, and that other side was talking to her in her head.
And at that point, it's
She gave it the name
communicating-
Captain Howdy.
It shows a few more things. She goes up into the attic where she thought she heard rats. She doesn't find any rats. She tries to light a candle at one point. It like bursts into flames or something. The attic is ice cold. She tells someone else, one of the servant guys, to go up there and figure things out. He can't find anything. But she continues about her day and her sort of day-to-day lifestyle without thinking too much of it. She is not religious in the least.
No.
She is not Christian. She is not Muslim, not Jewish. She is, I guess I would consider her to be an atheist or maybe an agnostic.
Yeah, just going through
Right.
life.
Yeah. Hey, I don't believe in any of this. At one point, she refers to, she calls priests a witch doctor because she doesn't believe in that sort of thing. But she very slowly starts to kind of accept it when things start to turn for her daughter. The one scene that I remember that is somewhat early on that I thought was kind of interesting was she's having some sort of a party at their house one night.
It's like a set party, and all the people,
Yep.
they probably had wrapped or something, and the director's there, and he's hammered, and he gets in a fight with an argument with the German servant, and he's calling him a Nazi.
He says, I bet you never went bowling with Goebbels either, you Nazi bastard.
Yeah, and then they get in a little scuffle, but then the party winds down. There's a priest there who you're introduced to in the movie that is friends with Father Karras. And then Reagan comes down, and the people are, it's the old school sitting around a piano.
Yeah,
singing songs.
That's where the
and-
party would end up back in
Yeah,
the day, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then there's a half dozen of them sitting around. It's all the last of the party, and you can already tell that they were manipulating her makeup for Linda Blair, the daughter, and she looks a little puffier, a little darker around the eyes, and
Sure.
just looks off, not as bright, and she's just standing there with a catatonic stare, and she tells somebody to fuck off. Or
No, so
she says something.
what she
vulgar.
says is they're around the piano, and there's a guy there.
The astronaut.
He's an astronaut,
Yeah,
right? Which
yeah.
at that time was like that would have
Huge.
been one of the biggest fucking things in
Yeah.
the world. Like that would have been like I'm a Navy SEAL times 100.
Yeah.
This guy's an astronaut, and she walks downstairs in her nightgown, and she's standing there, and everyone kind of just stops and looks at her like, "What's going on?" And she just looks at the guy and goes, "You're gonna die up there," and then cuts whiz right there on the floor.
So then they
right on
cut to the
carpet.
floor, and she's just peeing down her leg. It's a
And-
12-year-old girl.
Yeah,
And it's unsettling.
really, yeah, it's shocking.
Think
Her
of
mom,
that. Think of that movie in 1973.
yeah, I can imagine it, but I can't. I mean, I wasn't born yet. But after that, Mrs. McNeil brings Reagan upstairs and gives her a bath. The party's over at this point, and is kind of giving her a bath, and I think is realizing, hey, there's something wrong with my daughter.
Yeah.
And Reagan isn't saying much. She's kind of just going with the motions, and over the next kind of probably 40 minutes of the movie, there's this sort of, I guess you would call it kind of a crescendo where,
The progression.
yeah, it shows Chris McNeil is starting to go, hey, I got to do something here about my daughter. Well, I'm going to start by, what's the first course of action? That's take her to doctors.
Yep.
And she takes her to doctors, and it starts off with Reagan basically telling the doctors in many such words, to fuck off and things like that. And she's
Punches one of them.
behaving very, very
Spits in their face.
inappropriately. You fucking bastard. Yeah, they're trying to sedate her. And then,
And then they have those archaic MRIs and CAT scans. How they set those up. And it's like, holy shit.
that
man.
scene, from people I've talked to, the scene with the angiogram or whatever
Yeah.
it is, I guess that one is the most troubling for a lot of people to watch, and
Where they
myself included.
Stick that needle in her neck.
Some massive needles in there, and
Yeah.
there's blood, and I guess that was, for its time, a medically accurate depiction of what it would take to do an image of the brain,
Sure.
which was, nowadays they probably go in through your femoral artery in your leg or your
Yeah.
groin or something like that. Back then, they went right into your carotid,
Yep.
and you were conscious. And from the looks of it, it is not pleasant. And there are real doctors in that scene doing that procedure. And I'm going to give you just a little tidbit here.
Okay.
There's a guy in that scene. He's bearded. He's probably in his late 20s or early 30s. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was a real tech or person that, administered those types of procedures back then, the angiograms. That guy ended up going to prison for like 20 years for murdering someone, and there is pretty solid evidence that this guy was a legit serial killer for years.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and
Wow.
he's in that scene.
Maybe he was possessed.
I guess there's a lot of things that have happened on the set in that movie. Some people died. A lot of people got sick. All kinds of weird sort of circumstantial stuff about that movie. But
well, then at the same time, you have these medical procedures. You have the medical doctors. And then the mom is starting to experience things with her daughter where the bed's shaking and the daughter is violently convulsing, but yet the bed is not lifting, but shaking off the ground.
bumping up off the ground.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's other things.
The mom is looking at this and going, "Hey, wait a minute! I've never seen anything like
seizure.
Yeah, this is odd." And then the funny thing is that this is an atheist or an agnostic person who doesn't believe in those sort of things. Now she is forced to.
Well, she's gone to psychiatrists, psychologists. And so I would imagine watching this movie, and I kind of looked at it critically, is that there's a time lapse. This isn't like 1 week, where all this stuff is happening. It's months.
Easily months. Yeah.
And you see some seasons that kind of change, fall, and then they really don't go into winter, but then it's kind of warmer out or something.
Right.
Not super hot, but it must have been at least early spring. But whatever, it's a D.C. area. And then the same thing that's happening parallel is the Father Carreras, the psychologist or psychiatrist. Karras. And, so his story with his family, and it's his mom and his uncle. But, the mom's living in some shithole and Italian. She's Italian.
Some squalor apartment type thing.
And he's even questioning his faith with other priests and bishops and stuff and talking about how he's struggling. And he's a boxer and he's an athlete and he's running, chain smoking like everybody else in the movie.
Yeah.
And, having some beers with other priests. And he's, talking about how he's lapsing in faith.
Yeah, and
you can see him doing
at
mass.
one point he even wants out.
Yeah, he wants out, and then when you watch him do the Eucharist, communion, you can tell he's not in it. He's thinking about other things. Usually they're very engaged, or at least they appear to be engaged when they're doing the Eucharist.
Right.
Being a Catholic, I've sat through a lot of them.
Yeah, and he's checked out, sort of, kind of mentally.
Yeah, and he's struggling with his mom.
Right.
And his mom ends up in a psych unit.
Yep, because she can't take care of herself anymore. And he has sort of protests about it with his uncle, but he allows it anyways. And then his mom ends up dying inside the facility. Yeah. Right. He feels immense guilt. While this is going on, Chris MacNeil is taking her daughter around to all these doctors and trying to convince these doctors that, hey, these things that you find unbelievable, I've seen them with my own eyes, and you're crazy. She's trying. It's weird. The atheist is now trying to convince, the scientists that
there's more.
I know you don't have an explanation for this, but this is what's happening. My daughter is not having convulsions. Her bed is rising up off the floor and throwing her into the air.
Well, then there's the scene where the doctors and like a specialist doctor go to the house or the brownstone, and they're in the room with her. And then the demon shows up, or the devil himself shows up.
She's freaking out.
Yeah.
And they go upstairs. Cross. Yep.
And what does Linda do with the cross?
Well, there's a little lead up to that one too, where at one point, the part where they show up at the house is after they're analyzing her scans. They're looking at him and
there's nothing.
Right. And Chris MacNeil calls the doctor's office at this time. And they go and says, hey, there's an emergency. Can you please come over? And both doctors go over to the house in D.C.
Yeah.
Reagan's having an episode upstairs again where she's on the bed being thrown around.
Violently.
And they go upstairs, and their suggestion or sort of...
You can see them just observe. They're like observing this medically, like what in the hell?
Yeah, like, whoa, holy shit. And then one of them starts prepping like a needle or something like that. And she lifts up her robe and starts saying things you would not expect out of a 12-year-old girl. She then slaps one of them, knocks him completely across the room. later, like in a scene not too far after that, is when she's, I guess you could call it, sexually mutilating herself with an actual crucifix.
Yeah. I mean, now let's go back to 1970. There's no internet. There's no cable.
Right.
And you have a large population of the United States that's Christian and goes to church in whatever faith they believe in, not to mention the Catholics. And now you have a 12-year-old girl sexually mutilating herself with a cross. You don't see it explicitly, but you see the
you
blood.
see blood, and you see her hand
going, driving down towards her.
And she's screaming in a voice that is no longer Linda Blair's. It's clearly a demon.
Blasphemy.
That's kind of the last straw, too, I believe, before the doctors even throw their hands up and say, hey, we don't know what's going on anymore. We've done every scan. We've got 20 of the best medical minds sitting in this room trying to figure it out.
And then they suggest exorcism because, well, maybe she thinks she's being possessed. So then if somebody comes in who knows how to do an exorcism, she'll believe that she won't be possessed anymore. So they can't even wrap their mind around maybe there is demonic possession. Let's have a scientific explanation that.
Their explanation is classically sort of just scientist, which is this person was weak-minded enough at one point to allow the suggestion that they could be possessed to take over their body and brain. Therefore, if you were to bring a priest into the fold and suggest that that type of thing could be taken out of your brain, they may fall for it. They're very kind of condescending in how they present this. There is no way that these people believe in any way, shape, or form that the problem could be spiritual in nature and not scientific in nature.
Yeah, exactly.
And when they tell this to Mrs. McNeil, she basically says the same thing, which is, you want me to take my daughter to a witch doctor? She doesn't want anything to do with that, but because Regan is so advanced in her kind of disease or possession, she has no choice. And she seeks out Father Karras, who she has seen a couple times walking around in the neighborhood and things like that.
Yeah, so she gets his name, I believe, from the one priest that was playing the piano at the earlier party.
Yeah.
And then he is very reluctant to talk to her. But an interesting character in the movie is the homicide investigator.
He was much bigger role in the book. His name is Kinderman.
Yeah, and I don't remember, I think I've seen that movie in its entirety 30 years ago.
Okay, so it's been a while, basically.
It's been a long time, and I probably watched it 3 times in the 80s.
Did you enjoy it when you watched it, recently?
Yeah, I was I guess I was living on a memory, living on a prayer about more focused on the last 20 minutes of it.
Right.
And the first part in Iraq,
You'd
I
totally
completely forgot about it, and then until I saw it again. And then some of the other details with the homicide investigator and just the dilemma with the priest and his own personal battle.
Well, the reason the homicide guy came into the fold too, and we haven't really brought this up, was because at one point the movie director Burt Dennings shows up dead on the street not far from Chris McNeil's house.
Well, it's down a large flight of multi-level stairs, similar to like the Joker in that movie.
Yeah,
most recent
they
movie.
even call them the Exorcist stairs.
Yeah.
No, but the director dies, like Bubs was saying.
And the window of Linda Blair's room, her bedroom, is right above those stairs.
And Chris finds it open one night, and freezing, and doesn't know what's going on.
And that director was there hanging out. The female servant left because the director was there, and she's like, "Can you watch the kid for a minute?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then she comes back, he's gone, and the mom's all pissed off, closes the windows, but doesn't realize the guy's at the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah.
With his head completely turned around.
Turned around, his neck was broken. The homicide guy is basically trying to figure out what happened. He goes to Mrs. McNeil as well as Father Karras because he thinks that there could be some occult connection because recently in a lot of local sort of spots, churches
it's a Catholic
and parishes,
church where
they've been vandalized recently.
Well, it was a statue of Mary that was,
vandalized.
Well, vandalized, or I guess what's a better term is vandalized. It's
like sexually vandalized.
Well, it was
defiled.
Defiled. It was defiled. So the Virgin Mary was defiled.
Yes, very rudely.
Yes, and a lot of the characters in this movie are women. So the spirit is out there. The evil spirit is loose, Captain Howdy.
Yeah.
Or Satan.
And no one, no one yet believes that it's actually legit. Not the mother, not the doctors that are trying to help Regan, not the homicide guy, and not even the priest when he first gets kind of made aware of it when Mrs. McNeil, in kind of her desperation, seeks out finally Father Karras after hearing that Burt Dennings, the director, is dead. She starts to think that my daughter did this.
Yeah.
Mainly,
she keeps her mouth shut.
Right. But the scene where we had talked previously where the crucifix, where she's sort of defiling herself, with the crucifix. At one point after smacking and beating up one of the other doctors in the room during the crucifix scene again, she at one point turns her head completely 180 degrees around from her body, looks directly at her mother, and then says in a sort of kind of grotesque, bastardized voice of Burt Dennings, the director, goes, "Do you know what she did, your cunting daughter?"
Yeah.
And at that point, I think Mrs. McNeil realizes that my daughter probably just killed my boyfriend.
Yeah, and doesn't the Linda kicks the shit out of the mom, right?
Yeah, she throws her
Reagan is-
against.
yeah.
And in
Black
that
eyes.
scene, you can see. I guess Ellen Burstyn really broke like her tailbone or something in that
wow.
scene, and you can see it. They left it in.
Yeah.
She hits the wall and screams in pain. But that's it. At that point, she realizes I got to do something. She goes to Karras and says, "Hey, my daughter needs an exorcism." And he's like, "Well, I don't know what to tell you, but that we don't do that sort of thing anymore. First of all, the church has to investigate it. Second of all, they have to give approval.
And it has to meet certain criteria.
Yeah.
And I didn't look up all the criteria.
Third of all, they've got to find someone that can perform the actual ritual, which they don't really exist. And the criteria was something along the lines of speaking in a foreign language.
That's not familiar.
Something along those lines. I can't
Holy water.
That was one of them. He eventually agrees, just I think out of sheer desperation, to go over and see this girl. And when he does, he goes up into the bedroom, and she's on her bed, and she's kind of tied hand and feet to the bedposts that are all wrapped in pads and pillows and things like that. And that's when, to me, the movie really gets good, man.
Yeah, it gets unsettling. To me, I was unsettled. I was bothered by it. Seeing a 12-year-old girl act that way.
Yeah.
And just those
voice. The voice.
And then the priests, just the way they were trying to manage through it.
Well, at first it's just him, though.
Yeah. And he's quizzing her, and he's kind of being cocky about it and talking to it. And then I think he finally realizes, holy shit.
I think the first time he goes over there, she starts speaking a little bit in Latin.
Yeah, Latin and then tongues. And he records. Well, no, he goes back and records, doesn't he? Yeah.
He ends up showing up again with a tape recorder. And she shows him little signs. Like at one point, he said when he first sees her, and she's in bed with all these kind of sores all over her face and things like that, and she's tied to the bed.
Well, he's not dressed as a priest either.
Nonetheless, he goes in there and says the demon basically says to him, "Undo these straps," because she's tied to the bed, and he says, "Well, if you're the devil, why don't you undo them yourself?" And that is too much vulgar display of power, Karras.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of really cool lines in there, and starts speaking Latin. He shows up again with a tape recorder, an old 70s tape recorder.
Is that when he gets puked on?
Yes, I believe
projectile
so.
vomited, the classic.
The classic projectile scene where they throw up like pea soup all over his face.
Yeah. But he wasn't dressed as a priest then.
He
didn't have the...
Okay.
He didn't have it
He was
on.
civilian gear at that point.
Yeah.
He threw holy water, though, at one point.
Yeah, but she knew he was a priest before he started all that stuff. She said something to him about it. And then I think she said something about his mom dying.
She did. She also said earlier in the film when it shows Karras kind of going about his day-to-day stuff. He's my favorite character in this movie by far.
He's a struggle.
He's like the audience where you don't really believe what's happening, but it shows him in a subway tunnel at one point, and he's waiting for a train. And there's a really memorable scene where there's a drunk bum behind him who's sitting on the floor drunk of the subway.
Yeah, I was
an altar boy. "Can you spare a dime for an old altar boy? I'm a Catholic." or something
Yeah.
like that. And he kind of looks at him in disgust and just walks away. And then at his first thing with Reagan at one point, she goes into a voice and goes, "Can you spare a dime for an old altar boy, father?" And he looks at her like, "Oh, shit, what's going on here?"
Yeah.
Now he's starting to believe.
Yeah.
He goes and eventually records her, tries listening to it, brings it to some sort of audiologist who says, "Yeah, that's Latin in reverse," and he plays it backwards like a Led Zeppelin fucking album.
Well, then it's
or something.
English too in
Yeah.
reverse, and then it's "I am the beast."
Yeah, and
Fear the beast.
Yeah, help me, or something
Yeah,
like
and
that.
then "Fear the beast."
Yeah, it's really cool. Now he's starting to believe it. He shows up again. The one of the housekeepers calls him there when Mrs. McNeil isn't home, tells him to go upstairs. He goes into the room. It's freezing again. And he can see like marks and scars on the little girl's body that's saying, "Help me."
Yep.
And
On her,
things
on
like
her
that.
torso.
Yeah. So he's kind of a believer now. He's doused her with holy water. That, freaks the...
Yeah, but
the
he
demon out.
didn't use holy water. He used tap water, he said.
He said that. I
Yeah.
kind of wonder, though, like, because if you look...
I think he was trying to look for an excuse to get out of it.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Because if you look at that scene when he's actually dousing her
Yeah.
with the water, he's amazed. Like, he's looking at this going, "Dear God, what am I dealing with?"
And then he goes to the bishop and says, "This is what I believe. This is what's happening." And what I was amazed at is how quickly the bishop and the head priest of the Jesuit college or whatever give in and say, "Okay, yeah, we got to do an exorcism here."
They kind of did usher that along relatively quickly.
Yeah.
I figured maybe there would have been a little more pushback, but
Yeah.
at that point, it doesn't really matter. You're so into seeing this movie get resolved at that point that I don't know. It wasn't as big of a deal for me, but you're right. It's a little bit of, I don't know if I'd call it a plot hole, but it was a little thin there.
Yeah.
A tiny bit. But that's where they bring in Father Marin, Max von Sydow.
And he had done an exorcism in Africa that was, I guess, nearly killed him, and it took months.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's basically what happens,
And so
here.
then it's go time. He shows up. He's got Father Karras is there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he's getting the vestments on and doing the stuff and giving them instructions. Don't engage, don't believe, don't fall for the traps, don't do any of this. Just follow me. Let's go. And he's like, "What do you mean we're going now?" And then they go right in.
Yeah, we got to get this thing
Get
out.
on their knees and "Our Father," and then they start going to the exorcist rites.
The demon will tempt you. Do not believe his lies.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's basically what it is.
Yeah, well,
And
it's the devil.
they go through it, and man, the exorcism stuff.
But that
it goes
scene
on for
to
a
me,
while.
that where that is happening is just I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's unsettling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a 12-year-old girl.
It's very good. The exorcism goes on for a while.
We don't need to give away
Hard
the
to
ending.
watch, right?
Yeah,
But
watch it. It's a good movie.
in many ways, they succeed. I don't know what to tell you guys other than The Exorcist from 1973 is, for me, probably the scariest movie that I've ever seen in my entire life when it comes to just holy shit. And see that one. I don't know about the one from 2023, but definitely try 1973, the original
Well,
Exorcist.
you have to put that in the context of when it was made. And you cannot believe, how devout. People are devout nowadays, but religion has taken a sidestep, unfortunately, for a lot of people, especially after COVID and churches, and people aren't going as much, right?
No, that and they now just worship fucking Taylor Swift.
Well,
and
it's
gays
material.
and-
It's
yeah.
Is it ideology?
Yeah, it's a.
Oh, I'm
it's a
sorry.
Golden,
What
it's
happens?
A golden calf.
What happens?
Not good.
No,
not a lot. Of,
it's
yeah,
not
there's,
good.
There's a
No.
fire and brimstone element
Or a
to that.
flood.
Yeah,
Or both. There's stuff that happens that's
There
never
is.
good, and
Right.
there's multiple examples in the Bible.
there
but
is.
I should have talked to my dad and see if he went and saw it back in the 70s, but I doubt it. He's a very devout Catholic. I bet he wouldn't have gone.
My folks did, and my they're not Catholics, but I think my dad still has a hard time watching. He's not even a Catholic. You know what I mean? He's a paganist Lutheran,
Yeah.
and I believe he, still has a hard time watching that sort of thing myself.
Yeah.
I do. And my sort of, personal beliefs lie somewhere in between Catholicism and Protestant, which is bizarre, but, I'm a Bible reader. It scares the shit out of me, buddy.
You know what's another movie like that is The Omen. The
Yeah,
first Omen in the 1970s.
that was underrated, I thought.
Yeah, I read all those books. I was hooked on that one with Damien and the dogs.
Yeah.
And that's just another similar like this. There's evil out there. It's interesting these movies are in the 70s that they were really into this evil.
Amityville Horror.
Yeah, I mean just evil, right?
I think
evil
The
exists.
Exorcist started it, though.
Yeah, probably. And
The
but
Omen was good.
Omen was good, and that's just, the son of Satan and Antichrist.
Damien, it's all for you. Remember that scene?
Yeah.
That lady, she just
The housekeeper,
threw
the
herself
nursemaid.
to her death
Yeah.
right there upon seeing Damien.
Mm-hmm.
I
Was
will.
that Gregory Peck or something?
Yeah,
like that, right?
yeah, he was the dad, I believe.
Thorn Industries.
Is that it? Was he
Yeah.
like some
Damien
magnet?
Thorn,
or,
yeah, he was
that's
a
right.
Big business
Yeah,
guy.
Thorn.
And those daggers.
I can tell you what here's a movie from the 70s as well that you should not see.
Okay.
Or if you do decide to see it, I recommend you only see it for the reason of viewing an actual piece of shit up close and personal, like in 4K. I watched probably half of this horrendous, vile piece of slop last night. And it is called The Exorcist 2, The Heretic from 1977. This fucker, Bubs.
Was a stinker.
So I started reading a little bit about this thing. Apparently,
Who's in it? Linda Blair?
Linda Blair is in it. Yeah, she's probably
16 or something.
I'm guessing like
17.
I'm guessing it's either 17 or 18. They've got her done up a little bit in a way that probably wouldn't totally fly these days, where she's a little bit sort of sexualized for a younger girl.
Well, it is the 70s.
It is. Yes, I took that into account. But other than that and a couple other things, they hired a few actors here that were pretty high-end names. First, you got Linda Blair, who younger, but she's coming off of The Exorcist, which is probably the biggest movie in the last 5 years at that time.
Well, you still had Godfather and
Yeah, Yeah, I suppose.
Jaws.
They hired, I think it was Richard Burton.
Wow.
And they also had the female lead was coming off of probably, the biggest movie, another big one from the 70s, Cuckoo's Nest, was Louise Fletcher.
Ah.
Played Nurse Ratchet
Yeah.
in Cuckoo's Nest. And plays like a psychiatrist that's helping Regan go through, I don't know what the fuck she's going through, but at one point the movie kind of involves this weird machine where they hypnotize, oh buddy, this thing is such a piece of shit. I can't even put it into words. Like I said, I watched an hour of it.
And you walked away.
I walked away just ready to throw not only my TV, but maybe my whole life right outside the window. I mean, that's how I had wasted 58 to 60 minutes.
I
of my
remember
life.
I had a movie like that, and I think it was Halloween 3.
The one with the masks?
And it was a TV programming where
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was like everybody had to watch. It was going to watch the show, and then it was just going to.
Yeah, and then it subliminally fucked with you.
Yeah, horrible movie.
Michael Myers was not in that movie.
No, my mom and I went to it for some reason. I was in, I don't know, 8th grade, 7th grade, some shit. But
Sure.
we went to it, and I think we got up and left.
I believe
I don't
it.
even think we finished it.
I believe it mainly because that was a bit of a departure. However, there are some Halloween movie purists that actually do enjoy that one.
I don't know how.
I don't either. I haven't seen it for a while. But Exorcist 2 for me is only go near that thing if you want to watch something that makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we picked a movie that's not necessarily in the horror or slasher genre. It's just an unsettling, demonic movie from the 70s. The late 70s had more slasher type movies.
It's a great example of a fantastic first movie
Mm-hmm.
that then just completely shit their pants with the second one.
Well, they had another, I don't know, a third or fourth one. I remember watching part of it, and it was set in Africa. And it might have been Father Marin's earlier story or something, and I think I watched about 20 minutes of it and put it, fuck this.
That might have been, they did some prequels in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And I never saw either of those. That's another interesting story is they shot one of the prequels, and it was really high budget. And at some point during it, they realized, holy shit, this isn't going to work. So they recut the movie entirely. And they actually have 2 Exorcist Part 4s.
Okay.
One of them is called Dominion, the prequel to The Exorcist, and I think the other one is just called like Exorcist: The Beginning or something like that. But they contain the same cast. It's just a movie that's been cut very different ways, and they came out within 1 year of each other.
Well, I think this one had like, big locust scenes and plagues and stuff in it.
That might be Exorcist 2 because there was locust shit in there where nobody could figure out why that was happening.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe.
And there was
I'm getting all my
Exorcist. There was in Africa stuff in there.
Okay,
as well.
so maybe I did see that one.
Buddy, like I said, this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen
All
in
right.
my life. And that includes
MacGruber.
Fuck you, man.
Well, come on.
I still don't understand how you think that movie sucked.
That movie had phenomenal potential. There was some fucking funny jokes, and then it's like they just stopped writing funny jokes.
Can you at least maybe give me the chance of it? It might be one of those movies where you need to see it more than once, like a comedy.
I don't know, man. I'm not gonna.
I'm not saying you have to see it.
I'm not gonna buy it again. But the opening scene when it says "skilled lover," I was hooked, and then it let me down. The celery stalk in the ass, I laughed.
Shoving a fucking celery up your ass ain't gonna cut it this time, MacGruber.
Yeah.
Great movie.
We're in two separate camps on that one.
So The Exorcist was fantastic, and it had a terrible sequel.
Yeah.
There's another movie that is kind of the opposite of this that I'm going to probably get yelled at for saying this, but
All right, let's hear it.
all right, let's flash back to 1991.
Big snowstorm.
Silence of the Lambs. Okay? A lot of people think that that's a fantastic thriller, myself included. I think it's one of the most well-acted, well-made sort of thrillers in my era, I think. Introduces one of the great sort of villains of all time with Anthony Hopkins playing Hannibal Lecter. He had been a little bit
Isn't it a
introduced.
trilogy written books, right? Red Dragon.
Right. A guy named Thomas Harris wrote the books, yeah.
Yeah.
Silence of the Lambs came out first, 91. It sort of takes, America and the world by storm with Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins. Here's what I'm about to say is,
I'd fuck me hard.
how about that music in that
I love
scene?
that song.
Every
I
time.
love that song.
Listen,
I always look it up. I love
if
that
we go
song.
have a bump after this one, I'm playing that at the bar. That's what.
Are you going to dance?
Yes, I will.
All
I
right.
promise you.
All right. Will you talk in your pants? and
I
dance?
will do the full.
doing it right now.
Full Monty.
Hard.
When I was a kid, that movie was so, and that scene was so ingrained in my brain as well as some of my juvenile friends.
Are you size 10 or what? What's this? Are you size 18?
Oh, wait,
Can you help me with this gouge?
was she a big old fat person?
Can you help me with this gouge?
Would you? Say, are you about a size 14? Oh, that's lovely. Oh.
My point.
This is
though-
going to be used against me.
my point though, Bubs, is this:
I'm an artist.
in 2001, 10 years after the original came out. I'm sorry, in 99, I think. No, that was the book. 2001, the movie comes out. It's called Hannibal.
Julianne
She has
Moore
to
or
take
something?
over in the role of Clarice.
Clarice.
Anthony Hopkins is still in it as Lecter.
Yeah.
I think the movie, a lot of people are divided on it. I think it's fucking flawless. I think it's a great, great, great
I
horror
know I've
movie.
seen it, and I have almost no recollection of it.
For those of you listening, give Hannibal a shot. It's worth your time.
What about Red Dragon? That was a bizarre
It's
one.
okay.
With the tattoo down the guy's back. and-
Yeah. That's got Edward Norton in it.
Yeah.
Edward Norton is, he's in a lot of things, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s. But to me now, I don't know, man. Whatever. I could do, I
Wasn't there-
could take him or leave him.
Now, is part of Hannibal go back to where Anthony Hopkins' character is growing up in Germany or Austria or something?
No,
What's that one?
That might either be the TV show or Red Dragon.
Yeah, okay.
The Hannibal movie basically goes back to some of his cases that he had with patients beforehand. Like the reason I also like Hannibal so much is there's a character in it who used to be a patient of Hannibal Lecter, and it's played by a guy named Gary Oldman, who's one of my favorite actors. You would not know it was Gary Oldman though, because his backstory is that he cut his own face off under the direction of Hannibal Lecter one night after getting drunk and giving him a whole bunch of poppers. And he cut his own face off with a piece of mirror and then fed it to his dogs. So his face is completely scarred to the point of, one of his eyes is gone and all kinds of
Is
stuff.
this the one where they sit at the table and then
they feed Ray Liotta his own brain.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
But-
I did see that one.
But Gary it's over the top, but it's
Over
great.
the top. Yeah, they use grotesque.
But
sell it.
Gary Oldman is this guy who's like, his dream is to capture Hannibal Lecter and then feed him to pigs that he's had trained to eat people.
Okay.
And he's really rich because he comes from a family of like agricultural giants or something like that, where he's, he was born into this money type thing. And his whole life now exists to get back basically at Hannibal Lecter. And in a lot of ways, I have more fun watching that than I have the original Silence of the Lambs, but just my 2 cents. Watched that one recently with number one Gary at the
Do you
house.
remember the movie True Romance?
Yes, I've seen it a couple of times. When I say a couple, it's been a while. I also know that it's basically a Tarantino movie. He just didn't direct it. Ridley Scott's brother did.
Yeah.
I'm
I don't know
taking
why
it.
that popped into my head, but who played the character, the drug dealer? Was it Drexel?
That was Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was thinking
Yeah.
of that. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a good job in that
yeah.
one, too.
Yeah, he's got like braids and shit,
Yeah.
or like weird, hairstyle.
Yeah. But he's all scarred up. Looks weird.
That one's got a young Brad Pitt as
Yep.
well in a couple of scenes.
He's
I
just
think
a high ass.
He's like a stoner or something.
Yep, the
isn't
whole
he?
time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool. We should watch.
Arquette, she's in it.
Yeah.
One of the Arquettes.
So
Okie dokie doggy daddy. I remember that line.
Tarantino wrote that, but did not make it. I think it's the only one he's done like that. Which you can tell, though, it's definitely a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah, that's good. I like that one. You know, here, I got a movie, a quick one for you.
Yeah,
I watched
go,
it. It was
go.
on Netflix. I know you hate Netflix, but it was called Renfield.
The vampire one with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, so Nicolas Cage plays Dracula.
Did you like it?
I was entertained because it was I'm a Nicolas Cage fan, and Nicolas Cage hams it up as Dracula.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
What?
And that's what he's doing.
Is he really?
Yeah, with a mouthful of sharpened teeth.
No kidding.
Yeah, and he's playing it real. And they knew it was a joke movie in a way, and so the violence and the gore is over the top. I mean, literally over the top, fucking
Right,
craziness. And Renfield is the main character, and he's troubled because he's sick and tired of being Dracula's manservant slave that he's controlled, and he tries to break away in modern society and goes to group therapy and all that.
Oh,
shit.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it's a little comedic, huh?
It's comedic, and they must have just told Nicolas Cage play it over the top.
Yeah.
And he does.
Which shouldn't be hard for him.
And he does, and he's in character, and he does a very good job, and it's silly, and it's set in New Orleans, which really didn't matter what town they set it in, but over the top violence.
He's got some good shit.
Well, this one is good. He's not the main character, but he steals the show.
I don't know what we're going to watch next, but we got a little bit of October left. So
Or we're
who
going to do
knows?
something in the 80s,
Yeah.
right? Where we're going to kind of
Like
do
Elm
one
Street or something?
Yeah,
or-
Elm Street or Elm Street. Sorry.
I'm ahead of you a little bit. I've been watching some of the 80s stuff recently just because I've got, a lot of times in the background, I'll put that stuff on.
Okay.
So I did watch Elm Street recently. I'd certainly love to watch it again.
Did you watch the Will Smith Elm Street video?
No. What's that?
Well, he's got a song, Nightmare
Really?
on Elm Street.
Does he?
Yeah, I think he did a theme song to one of the...
Sounds terrible.
That's basically all his same 80s beat with him
Sure.
singing about Freddy.
Yeah. I feel like maybe I vaguely do remember it a little bit, but no, I've not been into Will Smith much. And it's not because he slapped Chris Rock in public. I just more or less think that he's not really entertaining to me. I thought he was kind of good in Independence Day.
Yeah, I mean, he's
It's about the only
been
one I
fine
like him
in
in.
some movies. I think he thinks he's too important.
He's a guy who is a great example of a man who's been emotionally abused for decades by a woman. I think. I mean, he
Maybe
doesn't
that's
know
what he
which.
wants.
He doesn't know what. That's fine.
Yeah.
He's allowed to do that, but don't expect me to respect you for that.
No, what do you whatever.
I respect guys like you, Bubs.
Oh, sure.
Okay,
I just abuse myself.
that's
Yeah.
what I'm looking
And
for.
that's what I expect.
Me too.
Yeah.
Example. You're going to go home and get a good night's sleep,
True.
whereas I'm going to go out and probably tie one on
Really?
and fuck my day up for tomorrow.
You're not going to go that down the
You
far
never
road.
know.
I know.
You
You're going to
just-
be there. You're going to be the guy sitting at the bar watching whatever fucking ESPN highlights they got strolling through the fucking thing. Unless there's chicks working at the bar. And then you're going to be watching like Bachelorette because that's what they're going to have on. And then you're going to have a couple. You're going to BS with a few people. And then you're going to come home. And then you got responsibilities.
And that's it, huh?
That's it. You're not getting fucking plowed by yourself.
You might be onto something.
Yeah.
You never know, though. I mean, some weirder things have happened. Who knows?
Well, you could go down that road, but then you'll be like, why?
You're going to go home after this, right?
Yeah.
Not going to have a drink with me?
I pre-gamed with you earlier.
Thanks again for coming up today and talking Exorcist with me, as well as Y2K bullshit and things we no longer need.
Beaver Meadows and Pussy Willows.
Those are great ideas.
Fill in the blank.
Remember, too, hold on to your physical media, because there are some people that would like nothing more but to take that from you. Other than that, stay tuned to us next week. We're going to have either an 80s movie like Nightmare on Elm Street or,
Hellraiser.
yeah, maybe Hellraiser. That's a good one. Clive Barker.
That's a disciplined kind of genre,
yeah,
right?
That's a guy.
Didn't that get kind of
yeah.
weird?
That's a guy who had some pain, you know, and he had some interests. Let's put it that
What
way.
if you and I made a horror movie?
Man, I think we could make a good one. What do you think it would be about?
Whores.
Hookers?
Hookers.
Some guy who, you know, is like out trying to
Maybe
throw him in a van
here,
or something?
No, we'll do this. We'll do a 180. It's a whore. I guess there was a true story about a whore that killed people.
Eileen Werniss.
Yeah, but we can do our own version of it where a whore, maybe a man whore, that
Hey,
hunts,
now we're
down,
on to something.
hunts down abusive men.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
What if it was like an undercover cop whose job was to pick up whores?
sure.
But he like
But
suddenly...
it's set in 1922 Berlin.
Okay. Right at the heart of Weimar.
Yeah, well, 22, you know.
What if it was a guy who, you know, like went to pick up whores, but he had to go undercover? Well, shit, we're already describing the movie Cruisin', which was made by the director of The Exorcist.
Is it
Yeah.
Al Pacino?
And I believe it was his next movie after The Exorcist.
Wow.
And a lot of people,
Guy's got some reach.
a lot of people didn't dig it.
Well, it's a hard, and I hate to say the term hard,
Hard. Yes, it's very
but it's
hard.
a hard sell in 1975.
I think Cruisin' is a good movie.
Well, okay. How about Dog Day Afternoon?
Yeah.
That had a weird twist at the
Yeah,
end
a little bit.
with Al Pacino
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, he had to pay for his sex change.
Yeah, I mean that came out of left field. We're digressing.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening. Thanks for listening to our movie review. Check out The Exorcist. Check out The Exorcist, too, if you like dog shit. And then we're going to have another one here in another few days here for you, maybe a 1980s movie. Maybe we'll go on a rant about who knows what. See you next time, guys.
Bubs is out.